Hello, everybody, and welcome back. So glad to see you guys here again, picking up from last week's session and today. So I just wanted us to talk a little bit about confrontation. So this is something that kind of happens a lot in counseling, and I wanted us to start by looking at that first. And I want to talk a little bit about what we would consider effective and ineffective confrontation. So sometimes it can be done in ways that make people feel like they want to shut down, and other times it can be done in a way that allows people to really kind of think and reflect a little bit more about how they're feeling. And ideally, we want the confrontation to feel safe so that people can feel comfortable opening up, right? And so I'll kind of show an example of both, and we'll kind of just walk through that and see how you guys feel. So, winter, I'll start with you, okay? Um, Remember, this is just an example, and so let me know how you feel, okay?
Mhm.
Winter, you're always avoiding real issues in session, and you need to stop being so negative.
Okay. Wow. Um, that kind of hits home. Ugh. It feels a lot like what my ex used to say to me. Um, yeah, it makes me want to shut down.
Yeah. That tone reminds me of arguments with my co-parent, and I do not feel safe.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you both for stating that. And you're right, Katie. This approach is not going to help anybody at all feel safe, and it's not going to make you feel like you want to share more with the group. Um, and so, right, that felt very tense, that felt uncomfortable. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of give an example of how effective confrontation can look. And I want us to just kind of talk a little bit about how that feels once we go through that. So I'll start us off again. Winter. I notice that when the group talks about painful experiences, you often change the subject kind of quickly. And it makes me wonder and think if that's because it feels overwhelming, maybe. Do you think that maybe you can share what's happening for you in those moments?
Yeah. You know, sometimes it's just like too much. Like I can still hear my ex's voice like in my head, and I just do not want to get stuck there.
I get that. Growing up with a narcissistic parent, I learned to avoid conflict too. And it's really hard to unlearn that.
Yeah, I hear you both, and thank you for sharing that. Did you all see the difference there with that approach?
Yeah.
So, so the first example made some of you feel like I was maybe blaming or triggering these like old wounds, right? And then the second confrontation example was a little bit more respectful, and I think it showed that I wanted to know more, and we wanted to kind of understand what was going on with those feelings there. So, using this approach can really help everyone feel just more comfortable in general to, speak up and to voice how they're feeling, their experiences and concerns, which really is, the goal of this group. I want us to feel comfortable and to have that, what we call effective confrontation. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, we're going to switch gears a little bit. And Katie, it looked like you wanted to share something earlier before we started.
Yeah, I'm kind of having a hard time seeing why we focus so much on problems and confronting negative feelings. I feel like that's a lot of what we talk about, and it really makes me like want to retreat from the group. With my ex, everything was negative all the time. And so I'd rather hear positive feedback than relive all the negative with my ex.
Yeah, um, that makes a lot of sense, and I hear you. And I want to just say thank you, Katie, for speaking up, and for saying that. And it sounds like focusing on problems or issues really hits us hard, and it feels really heavy. And it reminds you of those, just draining conversations or conflicts with your co-parent, which is understandable. And that's really important for all of us to hear. In this group, confrontation isn't really about tearing anybody down. We're just trying to help each other kind of see and notice or identify any patterns that, might keep us stuck in old habits that aren't really helpful. But you're right. We also do need to focus on positive feedback. Both are really important for us to be able to kind of move forward and to heal. Would it be helpful for you if we highlighted, the strengths along with challenges together?
Yeah, I think I'd appreciate that too. Um, because growing up with my mom, I rarely heard anything positive, so it feels good to balance it out.
Yeah, same here. My ex only pointed out the negative things about me and our relationship. So hearing encouraging words, it really does make it easier to face the hard stuff.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, and we can definitely do that. I agree with you all as well. And I like that we can have this collaboration, right? I think we need to hear each other out and kind of figure out what works well for all of us together. And I'm here for helping you guys, feel comfortable to be able to open up. So thank you for your feedback, Sahar and Winter. Um, that's exactly what we want to keep working on, balancing both support and challenging moments so that we feel safe and encouraged to speak up and to work together. So another thing that I did want to touch on a little bit is the difference between like multicultural and monocultural group settings. And so, for example, in a group like ours, with people from different backgrounds, uh, having direct confrontation can mean very different things. Okay. So, for some, it might feel harsh or disrespectful. For others, it might seem as honest and just, being straightforward. Um, for me, as the group leader, I want you all to understand that my job is to make the adjustments as we kind of go through these sessions, right? And so this can mean that I might need to use either softer language or that we start conversations maybe with strengths, like we said earlier, so that everybody feels respected. And in a monocultural group where, all members kind of share similar values and expectations and maybe even backgrounds, those kinds of confrontations can feel the same for everybody. And so I want you all to remember that in this group, we really want to honor everybody's backgrounds and differences. And again, I will kind of be leading the pack and make adjustments along the way so that we make sure that everybody continues to feel respected and supported.
Yeah, in my culture, direct confrontation was kind of seen as disrespectful. My mom used it often, and it was like a form of control because I wasn't allowed to respond back. Her word was just final. Um, I appreciate that in this group, we're being more mindful of how direct confrontation can feel. Um, it can feel different, right? Or intimidating for some of us.
Yeah. Honestly, for me, being direct actually feels normal. But, over time, I have learned the importance of just slowing down and being able to check in with others.
Yeah, I really like that in this group we can talk about these differences. It honestly makes me feel safer and makes me feel like I can share more.
Great. Well, I'm glad that that message kind of, came through with everybody and that you all understood kind of the message that I was trying to give here. And I just want to thank you all for your honesty and for your feedback. It's really important that we understand this kind of multicultural setting because it reminds us that confrontation isn't kind of like a one size fits all, right? And so our goal is to continue to, again, create that safe space, make sure everybody feels respected. And it's really the only way that we're going to be able to kind of grow together and be able to move forward and heal. So I'll stop there and we can just see each other next week. So thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.